You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor, AA Ron. Made it to the bottom of yet another show. And it's been a good one if I must say so myself. The Save the City second installment, where we have tried to tackle our economic infrastructure here, our educational infrastructure, historic. And as we promised, our local government, right? City Hall. And so that's why we wanted to definitely close the show last but definitely not least with our Mayor Nikuyah Walker. Miss Mayor, good afternoon.
Hi, thanks for having me. How are y'all doing?
Blessed.
Doing good.
Doing good, thanks.
Yeah.
That's
Glad to have
great.
you.
That's great.
Yeah. Hey, look, we're going to have to pick it up a little bit, y'all.
Yeah.
I said this is the Honorable Mayor Nikuyah J. Walker.
We'll break out the minute,
Yeah. But
they getting ready to legalize. Do something.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, too, we are, definitely glad that you still, are standing strong on your platform. You are dodging all the fiery darts, as they say.
I don't know about dodging, but you're taking them, girl.
Oh, yeah. Nah, she a soldier.
Or taking them like a soldier, yeah.
She a straight soldier.
Yeah, and we appreciate that resilience, and as a black man, I'm going to say it makes me proud to see a black woman, stand so strong, and that's why we say, good or bad, for better or for worse, as a people, right, as a community, there's a line, like you may disagree with folks sometime, but but when it comes to people and respect, that's something that to me is just unquestionable. So, right. Definitely appreciate your resilience in that, as said. We are here because hopefully today what we can do is to clear the airwaves, right? Sort of the stage is yours. We're still in COVID season. We still have all of the trials and tribulations that we have as a city, within that. Same time, it is a new year, still, 2021. And we're glad to get you on, here on these airwaves to help start the year with us. So, that being said, wanted to make sure that there is, unequivocal, agenda, like the action items, like that may get lost otherwise. Those who can't make it to the council meetings, or those who get talked over, or whatever the case is, want to make sure that the questions are answered and the vision is clear. The agenda. Sounds all right, y'all?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
So we, without further ado, too, want to introduce our partners that's been hanging on with the Seville Tomorrow, part of the Seville Inclusive Media Project, along with, IMHO and Vinegar Hill. And we do have reporter Charlotte Woods on, and Giles Morris. So,
Mayor Walker, we don't get that many chances to ask you questions, and I don't want to get into I really just want to hear, I feel like that this city, everything is about race, and then we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how to not talk about it.
Hey,
and there are a lot of people who it makes them very uncomfortable. But I've been doing this my whole life, asking questions and making sure that, I have those very hard conversations. And it's hard personally. And of course, it's going to be hard because they're very personal, conversations. So I understand that it's not something that people desire to talk about, but we must talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can I add something to that, Charles, real quick?
Please
what the mayor said?
You don't need permission.
It's one of those things right here. Well, I see her doing all this work and fighting and, weathering the storm. Mayor Walker, what's it like to not, in my humble opinion, have the support of the people that you're fighting for? I mean, not that they're not supporting you, but they supporting you from behind the bush and saying, do it, Mayor Walker, but then, they hiding over here. Like, I mean, that's the truth.
I mean, I don't blame people because we're talking about what power does to a people. people are looking at me, to what Giles was just talking about. Last year, at some point, I don't keep up with it, but the Cville Weekly wrote an article, and it was Little Pay, Little Power, right? That was the title of the article, with me plastered somewhere in there. But they wanted people to know that, not wanted people to know, but they were trying to reshape the narrative of this person. If you went to the city's website right now, someone made the decision to put under that we only get a stipend. At no other point in history has the amount of money council earned. So right under my picture, you'll see a $20,000 stipend. And then you couple that with the media writing little pay, little power. They're trying to reframe, because this city, everybody I've ever been in a room with knows how much power I have. Not because of this title or position, but it's just what I've brought to the table any room I've ever been in my entire lives. They're not used to that, right? And so then we have people who are tied to that power structure, whose livelihoods depend on it, the way they can take care of their family, their children. So I don't blame them for not trusting that them stepping out in front of this very new movement. Like, Charlottesville has only been willing to really confront, these hard conversations. We say we've been doing it for a long time, but 2017 really shifted that for a lot of the community members. So we're talking about a 70% white majority in Charlottesville, right? We're talking about a lot of poverty, and the few people who may have be at a class level with some of those, higher income white people. Are they going to stand out in front of me when they understand how people have traditionally used power to manipulate and control people? So I understand, being someone who has studied history, I understand what people are possibly giving up. I would just implore them to understand that when they don't stand with me to do this fight, that they are signing up their children and grandchildren and their grandchildren's children for the same fight. So you're making a decision, whether it's the decision that you intend to make or not. You're just shifting that responsibility over to your descendants.
Why do you think it's such a firecracker to say the word white when you're talking about it from a political realm? Because we can say the word black and it'd be fine. But the second that a comment might be made like, and has the word white in it, it just erupts, and then they immediately want to call somebody racist and whatnot. So how is color fine for everybody else, but not fine when we're talking about Caucasian people?
What I hear a lot over the past 3 years is that white people want you to tell them that you're not the white person they're talking about. So if you could somehow separate it out, that when you're talking about racism, white supremacy, people who are owning those structures, racist, white supremacists, that you're not talking about me, right? That's what they want to hear. And when you have a person like me, who, if you had the slight inkling that I might be talking to you, I need you to process that. I'm not going to give you anything to make you believe that, let you off the hook from doing your own work. And then so we're right back to that. Once you lay it on the line and confront people, people are then charged with the task of doing the work, and not everyone can or are willing to do that work, because it means that they have to face themselves. And so that's what I've seen as the main issue during the past 3 years, that if I would just come out and have a list of, here are my white friends, here are the white people who are with me, here are the white people who are doing the work on a level that I feel will, lead to our liberation, then people wouldn't have so many issues with me. But since I don't do that, it's viewed as problematic.
Yeah. So, in hearing that, what I'm curious about from that is the initiatives, right? Like the things that you would want to put in place, but then, like Razor started with, maybe the black folks that should be supporting don't show up anymore, or there's still that color line there, right? To where folks still have this level of fragility to where it's like, no, like we just can't allow ourselves to let those things, occur because we lose some sense of our, supremacy, let's say. So I'm curious.
It's a lot of different. There's a lot of different things going on right now in terms. Everybody from the people who don't want it to happen in the first place to the people who don't want it to happen without them being the ones praised for it. And everywhere in between that is where we fall on the spectrum. We talk about education a lot of times, and people, in particular, there's former city council member Dee Smith, who I have to say often, I did not come on council to bash another Black woman. And that's all she hates Dr. Atkins. So her whole MO is to target and attack her, right? But let's look, you were a member of school board. If anyone has ever went to any PTO meetings, if they have went to even their children's classrooms, we still have the same divide in our school system that we had when I was a student, and I graduated in 98, right? The African American Teaching Fellows, we were on a panel maybe 2 years ago, and Ziona Bryant was one of the panelists. There was another fellow in the room who had graduated 10 years before Ziona. And then one of the women that I had graduated with was in the room on the panel with me. All of us were telling the same story, right? Of how there are very few people in the honors AP classes. There is a Black person or a few Black people. And so people want to say there's been a Black woman in a leadership position.
Right.
Why hasn't this changed?
Right.
No one wants to talk about how difficult it is for someone. Look at the challenges I'm facing, right?
Yep.
Have you seen those challenges being faced like in this way by Dr. Atkins? Imagine if Dr. Atkins was pushing people out of her way the way that I am, right? What we don't talk about is that there are individuals in positions of power in this community who haven't allowed Dr. Atkins to do her best work. And instead of Dee Smith attacking Dr. Atkins, she should be moving white people. I posted a couple weeks ago, white people, get your people. Get them, if you are our ally, get them out of our way.
I think Razor's printing t-shirts.
Yeah, right. No, he ain't.
So can I ask
it's easier to blame us. It's easier to say what we didn't do. You don't have to talk about, how every time you attempt to make a change or a move, if you just go back and watch the discussion surrounding the Quest program changes, a program that was built upon the Brown versus Board of Education mandates, right? This program is where white people decided, how can we segregate the schools internally, even if we have to integrate them? That was what that program being created was about. Dr. Atkins couldn't just, completely dismantle that program. What she had to do to make sure equity was infused in it was come and ask us for more money. And then I didn't agree that was the way, but if that's the only way, then we have to figure out how to give her more money. Those are the type of things that are happening here. But there were a lot of white upper income parents who thought, my kids are pretty exceptional and gifted, and they need to be in these classrooms. And what are you talking about changing this program?
Yeah, that's right. Giles?
No, I was just going to ask with the white people get your people question. I mean, I think one of the things that I see and that I've learned in Charlottesville in these discussions is that, the white truth and the Black truth are often very different perceptions. The vision, the binocular vision of, what things look like or what people are experiencing doesn't really get laid out in very many places. And in fact, you are one of the people who tries to narrate what that overlap is. But it is in ways, as you noted, that white people are too fragile to listen. So but I guess
And
my
I'm
question.
usually talking about the truth and pointing out the alternative facts.
So what's your plan, man?
But my question though on that one is like, so what is the work to get your people involved in? Like, what are the three things, that you're supposed to be getting behind if you're a parent, for instance, in the school system? That if you're a homeowner or a voter or a community or leader of a community organization, what are the three things on the big picture, the structural things that you have been moving the pieces along to change that you think people should be repping already or acting out on?
Yeah, there's so many things. Any room I walk into, you can find, whether I'm on the regional transportation partnership meeting, you can see where race and class plays a major part. And where our buses go and who they pick up and how frequently they go, that conversation is as tied to class and race as any other conversation that we're having. But what I think people don't understand is that, if we continue the way that we're going at this point, I'm sure in April when HUD new area median income comes out, that we'll be over $100,000 area median income. Right. And so that means that there are a lot of people making more money than that, and there are a lot of people making less money than that. But the median, $100,000. How is this community growing? It's people over $100,000 who are coming into. I think in the next 15 or 20 years, we're going to find ourselves only on the outskirts being bussed into this community. Serving people and then push back out. That's what we're fighting against. So all the things that you're talking about, and I have that whole list of all the things I've done and all the things that the work is undone, because 3 years isn't enough. Even the collective time that Wes, Holly, and I have been on council together in the past, decade or so, that isn't sufficient, right? It's not enough time even collectively. Because what I've found is that every time we take a few steps forward, someone is pushing another agenda 100 steps back. So we're talking about, even during this pandemic, what does economic times like this produce, right? What does it mean for people who are already a part of that 22% of people who live below poverty in the Charlottesville? We're not talking about surrounding counties, but just the Charlottesville community. Have we done enough? Well, if you look, we haven't done enough in terms of equity related. Our staff, because when we talk about this form of government, I can't hire people who's aligned with the vision of what the majority of the citizens of Charlottesville says their vision is. But the staff is about to present a document to us that says this is what the budget should look like now 2 years. And every piece of equity related initiative in the budget for the last 2 years, I've had to fight against. I haven't had staff come to us and say equity is a top priority. This community is seeing equity as a top priority. So here is a budget reflective of equity. And so then I spend the entire budget season trying to get my colleagues who think, they said that this is the best that we could do, trying to get them to understand how that is not good enough. And so it's almost as if every conversation, what I'm trying to get people to envision is that this old way is not working. Let's pretend that it's completely dismantled. Somebody blew it up, right? That budget, all the previous budgets, we have to start from new based on what the Charlottesville community is saying they want right now. What do we do to move forward? That is not how things are operating. And so we're still only giving the people who are most vulnerable in our community, we're only giving them crumbs. So when people say that I am disgruntled and aggressive and toxic, that's what I'm being: disgruntled, aggressive, toxic, whatever they say. Right. Ask them what the topics are, and the topics will always come back to something about how do we take better care of people. Even some of the staff members who are working behind my back to also discredit me, right? I still figure out a way to take care of them. when the conversation come up about how do we take better care of our staff so they can take better care of the citizens, if you watch, I am the person leading that discussion. So people don't have complaints about the work, and people are working this hard to take me out because they know what I'm doing. The work is evident. Every room I'm in, from the conversations with UVA and their leaderships to what I am focusing on internally with my little pay and little power, to even what I talk about. And I hope y'all know I'm being facetious when I say little pay, little power. People listening, if you don't get it. But and even to the mandates for the citizens, to how do you step up in your day-to-day life? Do you know yourself enough for you to even make sure that liberation occurs, right? And then the other thing people often tell me is that you're always talking about Black people.
Hey.
I am unapologetically Black. I never told anybody any different. I came out red, black, green campaign signs. If there was the shirt that says this month, February, last day of it, I'm Black every month, but I'm blackity black, black, black. This month, that's me. I have no problem been unwavering my entire life. And I think some people want you to do what politicians do normally. They talk about Black people when it's convenient for them during a campaign season for them to get elected. And then they forget about it until the year before the campaign starts or towards the end of it. And then the entire campaign season, they talk about us again, but we never get what we need. And so that's not who I am. And I'm also not comfortable with allowing other people to even join our council to say that they are vested in our best interests and then get on and do absolutely nothing.
You know, Mayor, thank you for that. And let's take a quick break. This is good. This is good. We head in the right direction here. And Mayor, I think when we get back, let's talk about those accomplishments. Like give us some of the things, because you have started initiatives that has benefited, and somehow that doesn't get talked about. So when we get back from break, how about you mention those for those who just may not know? You know,
I can come up with a list.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Don't be shy about it either. Yeah. So IMHO Talk Show, y'all. We're gonna be right back with more conversation to close out the Save the City second edition with Mayor Nikuyah Walker, City of Charlottesville.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show, Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor, Ron. We at the bottom of another show, and we are still joined by Mayor City of Charlottesville, Nikuyah Walker. And so how about we pick up Mayor Walker where we left off? I think it would be good before we go further with sort of the future, right? It's to make folks aware of, since you've been in office, those campaign promises that you have been able to follow up on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what we hear across the country right now is this call for $15 an hour. If people go back and do their research, even for that, I started lobbying, without having a better word to say, just as a citizen and as an employee of the city of Charlottesville, for the city to move to the $15 an hour. And we are there. For city government contractors, we still have work to do with the, city within the city limits. Mm-hmm. But something that's the national movement to get to 15, if people go back and do their research, that started, that got completed and wrapped up with my work. What President Ryan at UVA said was, because we had got that done in the city, that UVA was able to convince their board that got done. So that's a major, and 15 is not sufficient, but that's major right there. What people usually go for is like Home to Hope program. But what I would pay attention to is, the things that people don't really, pay attention to, like just the details of everyday policy and legislation that is passed throughout the city. one thing Wes said when he was there, that when he comes with ideas, I make them better. I polish them to make sure that people benefit from them in the same way that legislation and policy created the world that we're in right now, that we're fighting so hard to get out of. And when you talk about some of those policies like redlining to prevent people from owning homes, people didn't take decades to implement those and put those type of things in place. They put those things in place immediately. So one thing that I've been working on since I've been there is the CHAP program. When I started on council, and this is a good idea of like how you don't have to, things don't have to go slow. When I walked into the door as a counselor, the CHAP program, which is the assistant program for homeowners in the city limits, people would get either a $525 or $375 grant towards their taxes. Now, taxes have been steadily rising. No one had changed that program, I think, since 2006. And if you all know what your assessments look like every year, you know that they've increasingly gone up. Right now, from pushing that, and I have a proposal in to expand it this year that I'm fighting for, but people who earn $25,000 and less, they don't pay any taxes anymore. When before they would have only got one of those two grants, $525 or $375. We're talking about people who are paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in taxes. If you are $25,000 to $35,000, you're getting a $1,000 grant right now. And the next category is $750,000 to the $45,000 range is getting $500. Everyone is way over any amount that they would have received before. Those are the type of things that people are not paying attention to that are significant. Now, if I had it my way and didn't have to work within this very sluggish structure, anyone under $60,000, we should be offering grants 100% of their tax amount. And so that's pretty significant. I just got my assessment for 2020. And it increased by almost $40,000. So while my colleagues are telling me and listening to staff saying there is no money to expand this program further, people are getting tax bills that are $40,000 more than they were just a year ago. And people need to pay attention to that. That's during a pandemic year, right? So we're getting tax increases. Mine jumped from $241 to $279, which means that my tax bill is now a few $100s higher than it was just a year ago. And while we are allowing people tax assessments to increase, we are not talking about how CHAP should be it's not optional for council to consider expanding. It should be part of the package that our staff brings to us in this form of government. And imagine what developments like Dairy Central, what they're doing to the community. I'm watching that. I'm also watching and monitoring. The only counselor, even though I advocated, got the 20 affordable units, which are still a question mark because we don't know what that means yet, but there needs to be pressure put on Chris Henry at the dairy market for that. But also across the street where Sticks is at, that lot there, the same company now owns that lot. Who's monitoring that? I'm monitoring it, right? So when developments come up like Dairy Central, those huge buildings that are going to displace people in those neighborhoods, if we don't put in programs that ensure their survival, they're going to be taxed out of those neighborhoods. Even if they own their home, they won't be able to come up with the resources.
Is this gentrification?
And we're talking, I didn't hear you.
Is this gentrification? Like gentrification?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. All right.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It is. And you have to look at the strategy behind what Chris does. Chris will say, I put a Black business in here. So you all can walk through the door, order a dinner, sit down maybe and eat it or take it home because you live real close. That's not about us. That's strategy. And those are the type of things that we need to be paying attention
That's smart
to.
enough. Yeah. That's why we have that conversation about black business a lot. To where it's like there's strategies to build wealth. And it's like you can't be closed-minded when it comes to the ways that you're going to build wealth. You know? And that's a strategy how wealth is built. Hey.
Yeah, you also got to recognize token faces too. Not saying anything about any particular business, but if I can take and put you up here to calm the masses, I can still get done what I want to get done. So you honestly need somebody advocating for you that tells you what's really going on behind the smoking cloud.
Yeah.
And if you pay attention to a few months ago, I got blamed for being the person who was going to be at fault for displacement of Native Black families from that area. And all I could say was, I didn't vote for Dairy Central. And I spent a lot of time talking with Chris about what I thought income limits and all of those things should look like in that building. And he was able to go and convince people that he had their best interests. And if you have our best interests, why didn't we have the 75 units that I asked you to ensure was in that building for lower income families? Why are you still at a 80% AMI only, which means that he's still targeting people, above $60,000 a year. It's actually 70 or so, right? And what does that mean? That if you're talking about joining this neighborhood, that you don't even think the people in the income limits in the neighborhood deserve to live in the building you build it.
Charlotte,
So,
thank you.
Oh, sorry. Within your current seat on council still, how can you help developers see that there's a need for targeting lower AMI? This might be more complex of a question because it's not just one. But
so developers right now, they don't have to see because there's no incentive. But they come to us and say that any housing is better than no housing. And all of my colleagues have taken that. I've been the only one that stood firm to say that is just creating more housing for upper income, middle income people, and that it will eventually displace us. And what will happen is we'll get to the end of that story and people will say, oops, we did something wrong. How do we fix it? And then they'll try to bring 5 or 10 of us back in a decade and say, okay, there are a few more of them here now. And we also have to talk about how they're trying to define even, because Charlottesville is moving more towards a multiculturalism. And the narrative there is that we tried to help the Native Black people and they did not receive our help well. And so, but we do have other colored people, right? And we need to be paying attention to all of that. And that should be unacceptable to all of us. So I don't spend much time trying to convince developers that they need to diversify their AMI, because I know that's a waste of time. I try to use my platform to at least get them to realize that, okay, I'm not voting here, and these are the reasons why. And then I try to use every opportunity to call out when it's clear that they have no intentions of honoring even the AMI that they agreed to.
Hey, Giles, you're muted.
Sorry, Mayor Walker. Do you have faith that the comprehensive plan, getting a new comprehensive plan in place, changes that, or do you think it's just another set of rules for skillful people to get around?
I do think that if we continue to do the work with this consulting firm and then we actually do what's in the plan, that we should have better outcomes than we have had. We have to acknowledge that even we're landlocked in Charlottesville, and who owns that land, the available land, is a conversation that we are having. UVA is one of the landowners, the foundation, and that is a conversation that we are having right now. That was early on, having the conversation with President Ryan, him saying that this is a priority of theirs, being a part of the conversation up into the announcement. Those are the type of things that people don't hear, that I'm in every stage of the game. And I'm not the person, and people do use that, but I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not the person with a banner on Facebook saying, look at what I did today. Be proud of me. I am, 100% okay with knowing that the work is getting done. And some people are telling me, like, Nikuyah, you have to talk about these things. And then it's just not who I am. And I have to stay true to who I am. But since it's a conversation right now, I've been having those conversations with President Ryan since he arrived here. Real helping, kind of get what those working groups need to look like, and what it needs to be the focus point. And more importantly, not having them believe that they're doing us a favor. Talking about how UVA became the power structure that it is, that he is in charge of now, and what is owed to us is how I've had those conversations with him and his leadership team. And so I'm in the room when other people are, I watch people treat and this is a good example of what people in positions of power do to one another. There are people who we might look at and think powerful. They get in a room with the president of the university and they completely fold.
Yes.
They don't want to ask him any hard questions. They don't want to challenge him. They don't want to challenge JJ Davis or talk to her about, maybe if this is what you think is happening, this isn't happening. I am the person all the time saying, hey, no, so this is what you said versus this is what's happening. Now, and we're having that current conversation about the affordable housing initiative, because I don't want us to get back 10, 15 years from now. Hopefully it don't take that long, because the agreement has been 10 years. And that's 10 years of building 1,000 to 1,500 units, which is a great start. And that's how I left that conversation, that it's a great start, but it's not sufficient. And then bringing students back on campus, which the landlord and management companies in this area, they are terrified of that happening, because what would that mean for them? That all of the local people that they've stopped renting to, they would have to rent to again. Yeah. So those initiatives where my name is not usually anywhere in print or given credit for anything, I'm in the room day one having those conversations.
That's right.
And then pushing them to do the right thing.
That's right. And, Mayor, thank you always for joining us. But, of course, we got to wrap up, and never enough time. But in closing, what is the possibility of re-election, and what do you think that would look like for you?
Well, I'll know next week.
Next week.
So if you got a few minutes next week, I could definitely come on and tell you. But I'm making my announcement no matter what it is. Next Sunday, it's Holly's birthday, and that is the day that I decided to make it. It's not an easy decision, right? Right now, I could be having, listen, I'm turning gray, people. No woman in my family was turning gray. I just want to point this
that's
out.
What politics does.
So it is not an easy decision for me. And every day, it is not turning out in my head the way that I thought, that it would. Holly told Wes, I struggled with this with Wes 2 years ago, not running again. I completely understand why people let it go and don't feel like that this is the route to take. I don't know today what my answer is going to be next week, but I'm tired of contemplating it. And I know that it's going to be made, that I'm going to make it on the 7th. Yeah.
So unfortunately, we are usually off air on the following Sunday. We live every other, but we may have to have like a LeBron James announcement.
Can you make that between 12 and 3?
All right, Ms. Max, I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, so, wonderful show. Thank you, Mayor Walker, for joining us today.
Always.
Our partners over at Charlottesville Tomorrow for hanging out with us for today's show, and then all of our listening audience for staying with us and, just being a part of this enriching conversation. So, quick close out because we're over time, but we just appreciate you all thanks for sticking with us, and maybe we'll have some type of special next weekend where Mayor Walker will come back on and announce her decision.
Hey, Mayor, we got a text. Hey, Mayor, we got a text that in question mark says 1 hour special for the mayor.
Oh.
The announcement.
Well, let me know.
Hey, there you go.
All right, everybody. Take care.
All right.
We'll see you next time.